especially on large networks. NFS is really your friend. If you find a system, a network that's running NFS widespread, especially if they're also running NIS, you're going to get very far. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. Like I've seen people scan specifically for NFS-related ports. You can use the show command in Linux or other Unixes to see what's mounted, what's exported, who's mounting. And it's important to do this sort of reconnaissance because the goal here is, okay, how do I hop, once I'm inside a network on some system, I have a foothold. How do I get to those next systems? How do I compromise more clients? And NFS is a good way to do this without using exploits. You're just going to use weird configurations in the network to jump from host to host. A really important target is NFS exported home directories. Servers that have these, if they're exported incorrectly, or if you have the right access, you can really leverage this to get farther in the network. If you get control of an NFS home directory, more than likely you're going to be able to easily own every node that mounts the NFS server. If you get root on an NFS server, you can become anyone who has a home directory on that server, either if they're running NIS or through SU. Some of the good things to do here are harvest known host files. So everybody has a .ssh directory. In there is a file that tracks every host that they connect to using SSH. So harvest that information. This will give you more targets to go after. It also tells you, there's a piece of information that tells you, these are hosts that trust this user. So this user has some kind of access. So even though you currently don't have access, you don't have an exploit, let's say all these hosts are patched, you can become that user and use the fact that he's trusted to get into more hosts. I think in newer versions of SSH they're starting to obfuscate this, but for most of the systems I see this is valid. A huge thing to harvest is allowed keys. Like OS X allows SSH keys by default, or at least it did on the last versions I tested, and they don't have to have passwords. So if people use SSH keys, steal their key, you use it to hop into more hosts, or generate your own key, and we'll go into that in a minute.
Actually, if I can interrupt real quick.
Yeah, sure.
It works. It works, damn it. So ended up what happened is when I reverted it, I forgot to set a password for my XP user account. So what happens with XP is you can't authenticate to a network account if no password is set for it. So I'm a moron, and part of my revert is actually have to go set a password for the account.
You want me to switch to your...
Yeah, let me flip back real quick. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but finally got this damn thing going. Hopefully it'll flip back. Yay, okay. So here's a little HTML script, just a little web page. This could actually be somewhere on the internet for all it mattered. It doesn't really matter too much. All right, I'm going to hurry through this real quick so Val can get to this stuff. Anyways, UNC URL. Over here we spawn off, let's see, where is it? The big fancy Metasploit command line spawns off a SOC server, spawns off an SMB server, sets our shell. Basically says, give me a reverse connect shell whenever someone connects to SMB. So we run this sucker, and there we go. All running happy. Now we go back over here in our web browser. We disabled auto connect because I don't have DNS set up, so that's why it's failing. But let's say we're just a random evil web host. We put a cookie on a page or redirect it via JavaScript, whatever you want to do. They go to test.html. So you can see it's kind of loading in the background. It's being really slow. While this is happening, it's actually negotiating the SMB with my server, and my server is proceeding to own the shit out of it. So now we can see that it actually works. First thing is the unauthenticated access. So it tries to log in without a password. We say, no, buddy, you got to give us a password if you want access to these resources. And now we say, hey, we got a password. Now we have the landman hash, the NTLM hash, and then we authenticate back to the real host with it. And we say authenticating as VM WinXP developer. We authenticated. We connect to the admin $shell, generate the payload. We create a new executable file. We upload it to the website. We contact the service control manager. We get a handle to it, create a new service, close the service handle, open the service, finally print a little information about what we need to manually clean up. And then we start the damn service, which finally starts up a command shell here. So whole way too much code to write to make this happen. And here we see it keeps trying to authenticate over and over again, but Metasploit's smart enough to say, well, we're ignoring it because we already owned it. So we do sessions-l, sessions-i, 1, C drive, boom. Now we are on this user. So C drive, let's see, document, C developer is my user account, and echo pwned hello.txt. And we can use any other Metasploit payload, they all work fine. So we go back to our desktop over here, and we'll refresh. Did I put in the wrong directory?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm stupid, sorry. One of these will go right. All right, here we go. So, hello.txt, phone. Anyway, so it does work, damn it. Usually works much more smoother, but sorry. Knowing's half the battle. All right, thanks, Val.
Sure. Okay. It looks like the slides are a little bit offset, but that's okay. I'll talk through
Do
it.
it on this side if you like. Or yours are... to you.
Yeah, I think there's a projector issue, but that's okay. So one thing to look at is a lot of large sites have software distribution servers. They don't want to go out and touch every machine, so that they will distribute the software through a centralized host. These are really good because it's sort of like a single point of failure to own all the clients in the network. One example that I've seen is a system set up where they have a big Solaris server that's serving out, GNU software, commercial software, whatever. All the nodes access this over NFS. In this case, we actually own the software distribution server and Trojaned like LS or GCC or whatever GNU tool they were exporting, and then waited for the shells to come in. We didn't really need any exploits to do that. We just used the fact that everybody trusted the software server and leveraged that. Trust is a really powerful thing on pen tests.
Try flipping here if you want to try this one.
We're going to do some musical chairs with the computers here.
Oh, same thing looks like.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, in this one example, all the nodes on the network were patched to the standard exploits that we had available to us. But we noticed that everybody was connecting to this NFS server. We showed what was exported, and it was like /software, different amounts like that. We managed to get in the server leveraging a trust hijacking issue that I'll talk about in a minute. And then we Trojaned the binaries, and we got thousands of nodes sending us shells. So about trust relationships, the target you want may be unavailable to you directly, but not necessarily to another host you can reach. So expand your scope, upstream servers, DNS servers by a third party, all kinds of ideas. Just look beyond the direct target you're going for. I've worked with other companies that do pen tests, and a lot of times they will simply attack an IP address, and if they don't get anything, they give up. You got to attack the lateral addresses. And also networks. They may not trust everyone, but they'll trust each other. TCP wrappers, firewalls, they often have trust. So look for a node that's accepted by your target and own that as a foothold towards your real target. One thing I see a lot is people will have networks where they have both Unix and Windows, and they'll put TCP wrappers or firewall on all the Unix machines, but nothing on Windows. And so if you've got a vulnerable Windows box you can own, that's now an approved IP address on the Unix side. Hack the Windows box, put a port forward in, get past wrappers. In one example, I was targeting a Solaris home directory server because I wanted to get access to everybody's directories. It had TCP wrappers. I couldn't SSH to it. I couldn't get to it. But there was a bunch of Windows boxes on the same network. One of these Windows boxes had like a DCOM or a LSAS vulnerability. So got on the Windows box, dropped in a port forward to port 22, back to the home directory server, SSH to the Windows box. It sent me over to the home directory server, and I had access. A lot of times, like, you'll hack the Windows box, you'll get the admin password, crack it with rainbow tables, and find out it's the same password as root on all the Unix boxes. So think about those trusts. Before I go into this next section, I want to thank, there's a guy, KRB Klepto, that helped with a lot of these pieces, so give him some credit. We're going to talk about hijacking SSH to leverage trust into other hosts from the one that you've owned. The idea behind this is to abuse legitimate users' access to other hosts over SSH. So if you've owned a box and the user on that box has access, why can't you? Even if you don't know the user's password, there's things you can do. Let's say they use one-time passwords, token cards, or whatever. That's no problem. You can get around that. There's a lot of available tools for this kind of stuff. A guy talked last year, I think MetalStorm. There's Trojan SSH clients. But there's some cool stuff that is built legitimately into SSH, which means you don't have to insert anything that would look malicious. There's also like TTY hijacking, so if somebody's SSH'd in, you don't have their password, hijack their console. When consoles crash all the time, most people don't suspect when their console freezes up. So I'm going to switch back over to this computer. and show a short movie.
Hello, my name is David Maynard, and we're going to talk about wireless. Sorry. No offense to Maynard, it's just a funny comment.
Okay, 1 second here. Actually, I want to do full screen. These are kind of time-sensitive movies. Okay, so the background of this, we're on a machine. The machine happens to be called KDC, but that's irrelevant. We have access to a user account named Bob, and we want to leverage his access to other machines. So the idea behind this is we're going to wait for him to SSH to another host that we want to get into. There's a thing in SSH called master mode, which lets you reuse sockets that are already in existence. This is the command. It's ssh-m-s is this, and then you give it the name of the socket you want to use. You can name it whatever you want, and then the host you want to go to. The idea behind this is that if you've owned this user's account, you can alias SSH to run this way. You can edit the SSH config to run this way. You can actually edit, if you get root on the box, you can edit the SSH config globally for all users to automatically do this master mode. And it'll make sense here in a second. Okay, so the user logs into host 2. We want to access host 2. So we're going to hijack the socket that he's already set up and log in. We don't know his password. We have no idea what it is. But we want to get into host 2, so we're going to use SSH master mode to do that. So we SU to the user. We run SSH. We reuse the socket that's already there. And we log in. It didn't even ask us for a password. So this is a way to jump from host to host without knowing passwords, hijacking users' trusts and their accounts. So 1 second here. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
If that was like an alias SSH, something for that command for the same socket, would it overwrite that socket again? Would it be if you did the SSH command?
There's actually a way to write the command so that it randomizes the socket name each time. It'll be in the slides eventually, but it's like you do %r at. You can just make up some name and it'll randomize it. That way, you can hijack a whole bunch of people's machines. You could script all this so that you could, every time somebody SSHs anywhere, you hop on their socket, get on the next box. The next thing we like to attack is something called Kerberos, which is used for like one-time authentication. You get generated a ticket so you can hop from machine to machine. This is really great, especially for hackers. The idea here is you have a foothold on the network, you've compromised a box's root, but you don't have ways into all the other boxes. They're patched, whatever. So you're going to leverage Kerberos to get in, gain access to other trusted nodes. And I really like movies, so I'm going to show another one. Okay, so in this case, we have root on a machine. We're going to run the command called klist, which shows we don't have any credentials, we don't have any tickets, we can't go anywhere. We're going to become a user named Bob. I like to use Bob. We're going to show that, okay, we don't have any credentials as him either. Right now, we're not able to log into other hosts over Kerberos. For example, host 2 is the host that we want to break into. We don't know his password. We try. There's no Kerberos ticket. We're out of luck. We get permission denied. So we're going to